I was still trying to survive my broken engagement when my sister laughed and said, "Some women can't keep a man." Then I found out her husband had been keeping a secret too. I remember sitting at my parents' dining table in Madison, staring at my plate like if I looked down long enough, nobody would notice my face. It was the first family dinner after my engagement ended, and everyone was trying too hard to act normal. My mom kept offering me food. My dad kept clearing his throat. My aunt kept giving me soft, sad smiles from across the table. And my sister, Brooke, just watched me. Not with concern. Not with love. More like she was waiting for me to prove something she already believed. 3 weeks earlier, I had called off my wedding after finding out my fiancé, Kyle, had been cheating on me. We had been together for 5 years. We had a rented duplex, a dog named Cooper, and a small lakeside wedding venue already booked outside Grand Rapids. I had a dress hanging in my closet that suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else. I found out because Kyle left his phone on the kitchen counter while he went upstairs to shower. I was wiping down the counter when the screen lit up. "I miss sleeping next to you." At first, I told myself there had to be another explanation. Maybe it was old. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe I was reading it wrong. Then another message came in. "Tell her you're tired again. Come over after." The kitchen went quiet around me. The dishwasher was running. Cooper was chewing one of my socks in the living room. Upstairs, the shower was still on. Everything looked normal, and that made it worse. I picked up the phone. I know people have opinions about privacy, but when your whole body is screaming that something is wrong, privacy feels like a locked door between you and the truth. Her name was Jade. She was not a random mistake. She was not one drunk night. She had been in his phone for months. Photos. Messages. Plans around my work schedule. Complaints about me. Little jokes about our wedding. She knew about me. She knew he was engaged. One message from Kyle said, "After the wedding stuff calms down, I'll figure it out." I read that line 3 times. After the wedding stuff calms down. Like I was not a person. Like I was an inconvenience he planned to handle later. When Kyle came downstairs, he was still drying his hair with a towel. He saw his phone in my hand and froze. I said, "Who is Jade?" His face changed so fast. Shock. Guilt. Panic. Then that wounded look people use when they want you to feel sorry for catching them. He said, "Grace, let me explain." I hated hearing my name in his mouth. I asked, "How long?" He said, "It's not what you think." I asked again. He said, "A few weeks." By midnight, a few weeks became 2 months. By 2 in the morning, it became 5. He cried. Of course he cried. He said he loved me. He said the wedding made everything feel real, and he panicked. He said Jade made him feel simple and free. Free. While he was feeling free, I had been working extra shifts, calling vendors, paying deposits, and building a future around a man who was sneaking into another woman's bed. Then he said, I felt unseen. I just stared at him. I had packed his lunches. I had remembered his mother's birthday. I had defended him when Brooke said he was immature. I had sat beside him through stress, bills, and bad moods. I had loved him on boring days, broke days, and ugly days. But he felt unseen. I slept on the couch that night with Cooper pressed against my legs. Kyle stayed upstairs and cried loudly enough for me to hear. I think he wanted me to go comfort him. I did not. 3 days later, I ended the engagement. Canceling a wedding is humiliation with paperwork attached. It is calling a photographer and saying there will not be a ceremony. It is asking about deposits even though you already know the answer. It is deleting a wedding website. It is returning gifts from people who do not know whether to pity you or ask for details. I moved into a small 1-bedroom apartment across Madison with Cooper and whatever furniture I could afford secondhand. Kyle said he could not keep the dog because Cooper would remind him of us. That was Kyle. He could betray me for months, but a golden retriever was too emotionally difficult. My parents tried to help. My mom brought groceries and folded towels without asking. My dad fixed a loose cabinet door and pretended not to notice when I cried in the hallway. They were awkward, but kind. Brooke was not. Brooke was my older sister, and she had always treated my life like something she had to grade. If I struggled, she called it a pattern. If she struggled, she called it pressure. She had a neat house, a polished marriage, and a way of smiling while saying cruel things that made people unsure if they were allowed to be offended. Her husband, Dean, was quieter. He sat through family dinners with a polite smile and his phone face down beside his plate. He never joined Brooke when she mocked me, but he never stopped her either. That night at my parents' table, I was barely holding myself together when my aunt asked, "How are you doing, honey?" Before I could answer, Brooke sighed. Honestly, I think everyone needs to stop treating this like a funeral. The table went still. I looked at her. What? She shrugged. I'm not saying what Kyle did was okay. I'm just saying people make mistakes. I said, he cheated for 5 months. Brooke reached for her glass. Marriage is not a fairy tale, Grace. If Dean messed up, I would handle it privately instead of making the whole family tiptoe around me. My mom said, Brooke. But Brooke kept going. I just think some women expect men to be perfect, then act shocked when real life happens. I said, real life is not sleeping with someone else while planning a wedding. Then Brooke gave this small laugh. Sharp. Quiet. Mean. And she said, some women can't keep a man and then want everyone to call it trauma. My dad put his fork down. My aunt whispered, that is enough. But it was already enough. I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. My mom followed me to the porch and begged me not to leave. She said Brooke was stressed. She said I knew how she was. She said she did not mean it like that. But Brooke always meant it. She just counted on everyone being too tired to fight her. After that dinner, I stopped giving my family details. I still showed up for birthdays and holidays, but I kept my answer short. How was work? Fine. How was the apartment? Fine. Was I dating? No. Was I okay? Fine. Brooke kept making comments. If someone mentioned weddings, she said, careful, we do not want to upset Grace. If someone talked about trust, she said, trust is complicated when people have unrealistic expectations. Once, when a cousin asked if I thought I would date again, Brooke said, she has to stop comparing every man to a villain first. I looked at Dean every time. He never looked back. That hurt in its own quiet way. Everyone knew Brooke was being cruel. But as long as she used a calm voice and a little smile, they treated it like a personality flaw instead of a choice. Brooke loved talking about her marriage. She posted anniversary pictures, date night pictures, and photos of flowers Dean supposedly brought her. At dinners, she touched his arm and said things like, Dean and I do not believe in quitting, or a strong marriage takes maturity. I used to think she said those things because she was happy. Later, I realized she was performing. About 8 months after my breakup, I got a message from a woman named Robin. I barely knew her. She had worked at a hotel near downtown, and I had met her once through a friend. We were not close. We did not text. Her message said, hey, this is awkward, but is your sister still married to Dean? My stomach dropped before I knew why. I typed yes. Why? The typing dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Then she sent screenshots. At first, I did not understand what I was seeing. It was a chain of messages between Dean and a woman named Paige. There were hotel confirmations, dinner plans, photos cropped just enough to be obvious without being explicit, little jokes about timing. Then I saw Brooke's name. Dean had written, Brooke thinks I'm meeting a client. Paige replied, poor Brooke. Still posting about date night while you're here with me. Dean wrote, she needs the image more than the marriage. I went cold. I did not like Brooke much then. I loved her because she was my sister, but liking her had become hard. Still, seeing her husband talk about her like that made something twist inside me. Robin sent another message. I'm sorry. I saw them at the hotel more than once. I ignored it at first, but I heard she was planning a vow renewal. I figured someone should know. I sat on my couch with Cooper's head in my lap, staring at the screenshots until my vision blurred. Dean had been cheating on Brooke for almost a year. Not one night. Not a mistake. A second relationship. Lunches. Hotels. Lies. Messages sent while Brooke sat at family dinners acting like she had mastered marriage. And I wish I could say my first feeling was sadness. It was not. My first feeling was satisfaction. I hated that. I still hate it. But it was there. For 8 months, Brooke had used my pain as proof that she was better than me. She had laughed while I lost my home, my wedding, my future, and the version of myself that still believed people were mostly honest. Now her perfect life had a crack in it. And I had the proof. I did not call her right away. That is the part people always argue about. I waited 3 days. For 3 days, I carried those screenshots around like something burning in my pocket. I opened them during breaks. I opened them at midnight. I opened them while Cooper slept beside me and my apartment was dark except for my phone. I told myself I was waiting because I needed to think. I told myself I did not want to react from anger. But the truth is worse. Part of me wanted Brooke to sit safely inside her perfect little life for a few more days while I decided whether she deserved softness from the sister she had been kicking for almost a year. During those 3 days, I reread old messages from her. You need thicker skin. Not every betrayal needs to become your whole personality. The worst one came after my birthday, when Kyle mailed some of my things back in a trash bag. Brooke had texted, maybe this is a chance to ask yourself why he needed attention somewhere else. I had not answered then. I stared at that message for a long time. On the 4th day, my mom called. She sounded excited in that nervous way she gets when she is trying to make something feel happier than it is. Brooke wants everyone over for dinner on Sunday, she said. She and Dean have news. My first thought was pregnancy, and my stomach turned. I asked, what kind of news? She did not say. But she wants you there. I almost said I was sick. I could have stayed home. I could have sent Brooke the screenshots privately. I could have been mature. I could have been better than her. Then I remembered her laughing at Thanksgiving. I remembered her saying some women cannot keep a man. I remembered Dean sitting there silently while she tore me apart. And I went. Sunday dinner felt wrong the second I walked in. Brooke was glowing. Not happy exactly, but polished. Her hair was done, her makeup was perfect, and she moved around the kitchen like she wanted everyone to notice how calm and graceful she looked. My mom had made roast chicken. My aunt brought bread. My dad was setting glasses on the table. Dean stood near the back door with a beer in his hand, smiling without really looking at anyone. When he saw me, his smile flickered. I wondered if he knew. Brooke hugged me too tightly and said, "I'm glad you came." I said, "Me too." That was a lie. Dinner started normally. Too normally. People talked about the weather, my mom's garden, my dad's schedule, my aunt's students, some neighbor's roof repair. I ate enough to look polite and listened to Brooke laugh too loudly at things that were not funny. Dean barely touched his food. Halfway through dinner, Brooke tapped her glass with her fork. My mom smiled right away. She had been waiting for the happy announcement. Brooke stood and reached for Dean's hand. He let her take it, but his fingers looked stiff. She said, "Dean and I wanted to share something with everyone." My dad leaned back. My aunt smiled. Brooke looked around the table, then directly at me. "We decided that for our anniversary, we are renewing our vows." My mom gasped. "Oh, Brooke." Brooke's smile got bigger. "We have been through normal marriage ups and downs, like everyone. But we believe loyalty is a choice. Commitment is a choice. Staying is a choice." She looked right at me when she said staying. Not a glance. Not an accident. Something inside me went quiet. Brooke kept talking. She said they wanted a small ceremony, something meaningful, something that celebrated real love. Not the kind that disappears when things get hard. My aunt was tearing up. My mom had her hands over her mouth. Dean looked like he wanted the floor to open. And I heard myself say, "Does Paige know?" The room went silent. Brooke blinked. "What?" I should have stopped there. A better sister would have stopped. A kinder person would have asked to speak in the hallway. A person who had not swallowed months of humiliation might have chosen mercy. But I was tired. Tired of being the cautionary tale. Tired of Brooke using my broken engagement as proof of her maturity. Tired of Dean sitting quietly while his wife mocked me, knowing he was doing the same thing Kyle had done. Brooke said, "Grace, what are you talking about?" I looked at Dean. His face had gone pale. I said, "Paige, the woman Dean has been meeting at the hotel downtown while you thought he was with clients." My mom said my name sharply. Dean put his beer down too fast. "Grace, don't." That told everyone enough. Brooke turned to him slowly. "What is she talking about?" Dean shook his head. "This is not the place." I laughed once. It came out cold and ugly, and I hated myself for it because it sounded like Brooke. I said, "That is funny. When Kyle cheated on me, this table was apparently the perfect place to discuss what kind of woman gets cheated on." Brooke's face crumpled for a second before anger took over. "You're lying." I unlocked my phone and opened the screenshots. I wish I was. My mom started crying before she even saw them. My dad stood up but did not move. My aunt whispered, "Oh my God." Brooke grabbed my phone. Her eyes moved fast over the screen. Message after message. Hotel confirmation. Dinner plan. Dean saying she needed the image more than the marriage. That was the one that broke her. She looked at Dean and said, "Very quietly you said that." Dean rubbed his forehead. It was taken out of context. Brooke stared at him. "What context makes that better?" He said, "I was unhappy." The room changed. That was not denial. That was the start of a confession. Brooke asked, "How long?" Dean did not answer. She asked again, louder. "How long?" He said, "It was not supposed to become anything." My dad said, "Answer her." Dean looked at the floor. 11 months. Brooke sat down like her legs stopped working. 11 months. For almost the same amount of time she had mocked me for not being strong enough to keep a man, her own husband had been leaving their bed and going to someone else. No one spoke. Then Brooke looked at me. Her face was wet, but her voice was pure rage. "You knew." I said nothing. She said, "You knew before tonight?" I swallowed. 3 days. She stared at me like I had hit her. "You waited." I said, "Yes." My mom whispered, "Grace." Brooke stood so fast her chair tipped back. "You let me stand here and announce a vow renewal?" I said, "You let me sit at this table for months while you made my pain a joke." Dean said, "Can we not make this about Grace?" My dad turned on him so fast Dean stepped back. "You do not get to speak right now." That was the first time my dad had sounded like a father in months. Brooke started crying then. Not pretty crying. Not controlled. The kind that comes from somewhere deep and wounded. She shoved my phone back at me and walked upstairs. Dean followed, but she screamed at him to stay away. My mom cried into a napkin. My aunt stared at the table. My dad stood between the dining room and the stairs, jaw tight, looking disappointed in everyone. Dean left through the garage 20 minutes later. Brooke stayed locked in the upstairs bathroom. When my mom finally looked at me, she said, "That was cruel." Cruel. That word landed hard. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to say Brooke had been cruel first. I wanted to say I did not cheat, I did not lie, I did not make Dean book hotel rooms. I only said the truth out loud. But truth can still be a weapon. And I had used it like one. I went home shaking. Cooper met me at the door with a toy in his mouth, wagging like I had returned from war. I sat on the floor and cried into his fur until my throat hurt. For 2 weeks, Brooke did not speak to me. My mom called twice, mostly to cry. She said Brooke was destroyed. She said Dean had moved into a short-term apartment. She said there was more. There is always more. Dean had used money from their joint savings for hotel rooms, dinners, and a weekend trip he claimed was for work. Paige had known he was married. She had even joked about Brooke's anniversary posts. When Brooke finally called me, it was almost midnight. I almost did not answer. When I did, I barely recognized her voice. She said, "Did you enjoy it?" I closed my eyes. "No." She said, "Do not lie to me." So I did not. I said, "Part of me did." She went quiet. I said, "Not because you were hurt. I do not think I wanted that. But I wanted you to understand what you did to me. I wanted you to know what it feels like when your life collapses and people judge how gracefully you bleed." She started crying. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "I am your sister." That twisted something in my chest. I said, "You were my sister when Kyle cheated too." She sobbed harder. I thought she would hang up, but she did not. She said, "I thought if I acted like cheating was something strong women handled privately, then it could never humiliate me. I did not expect that." She said, "I knew Dean was distant. I knew something was wrong. But I kept posting pictures, kept talking about loyalty, kept acting like marriage was about being mature, because I was terrified that if I admitted I was unhappy, I would look like you." That hurt more than an insult. Because there it was. The truth underneath all of it. She had needed me to be weak so she could feel strong. I said, "You made me feel pathetic." She whispered, "I know. You made me feel like getting cheated on was my fault. I'm sorry." I had wanted that apology for months. I imagined it so many times. In every version, I felt powerful. Vindicated. Clean. But hearing it in her broken voice did not feel like victory. It felt like standing in the wreckage of 2 women who had been measuring themselves by whether men stayed. Brooke filed for separation a month later. Dean tried to spin the story. He told people their marriage had been struggling. He said the affair was emotional before it was physical, as if that made it noble. He told my dad he made a human mistake. My dad said, "Then be human enough to accept the consequences." I was not there, but my mom told me. I replayed it in my head more than once. Paige ended things with Dean as soon as the affair became public. Apparently, secret relationships feel less romantic when there are lawyers, angry relatives, and financial records involved. Kyle got engaged to Jade a few months after that. I found out from someone who thought I already knew. For a few minutes, I felt the old pain rise up. Then it passed. Not completely, but enough. I walked Cooper around the block, came home, ordered takeout, and threw away the last wedding magazine I had kept for reasons I still do not understand. Brooke and I are not magically close now. Life does not work like that. She came to my apartment 3 months after the dinner, holding 2 coffees. She stood in my doorway looking smaller than I had ever seen her. She said, "Can I come in?" I let her. She looked around at my second-hand couch, the scratched coffee table, Cooper's toys everywhere, and for once, she did not make a comment. She just sat down and said, "I was awful to you." I said, "Yes." She nodded. "I know. I expected excuses." She did not give many. She said she had been jealous that I left Kyle immediately because she did not know if she would have been brave enough. She said my decision scared her, because if I was right to leave, then maybe staying was not always strength. Maybe sometimes it was fear dressed up as loyalty. That stayed with me. I told her I was sorry for exposing Dean at dinner. Her face changed. I said, "I am not sorry you found out. I am not sorry he got exposed. But I am sorry I did it in the most painful way possible." She looked down at her coffee. Then she said, "I think I deserved your anger." I said, "No one deserves to be cheated on." She looked at me. I meant the anger. That was the closest we got to forgiveness that day. A few weeks later, she helped me paint my kitchen. We barely talked for the first hour. She taped the edges badly. I fixed them. She ordered pizza. Cooper stepped in the paint tray, and for the first time in a long time, we laughed at the same thing without it hurting. It was not sisterhood repaired. It was a start. My mom still thinks I should have handled it privately. My aunt says Brooke had it coming, but admits the dinner was brutal. My dad does not talk about it much, but once, when I apologized for causing a scene in his house, he said, "You did not create the rot. You just lifted the rug." I think about that a lot. Because I know I was not innocent. I had choices. I could have called Brooke the day Robin sent the screenshots. I could have gone to her house. I could have told her gently. I could have protected her from the public humiliation she never protected me from. Instead, I waited until she stood in front of our family and used the word loyalty like a knife pointed at me. Then I took the knife from her hand and turned it around. I am not proud of the laugh that came out of me that night. I am not proud that revenge felt warm for a few seconds before it turned heavy. I am not proud that part of me wanted her to feel what I felt. But I am done pretending that being hurt means I owe softness to people who enjoyed hurting me. Brooke and I are trying now. Slowly. Carefully. Some days we text like sisters. Some days we feel like strangers with the same childhood. She is still divorcing Dean. I am still rebuilding a life I never planned to live. Cooper still steals socks. My apartment still has cheap furniture. But it feels like mine now. And every time I pass the boxed-up wedding dress in the back of my closet, I feel less like it is haunting me and more like it belongs to someone I used to be. Someone who thought being chosen was the same as being loved. Someone who thought silence made her mature. Someone who would have swallowed the truth to keep peace at a table where nobody protected her. I am not that woman anymore. Maybe that makes me petty. Maybe it makes me cruel. Maybe I should have been better than Brooke instead of becoming like her for one ugly moment. But maybe there is a difference between creating pain and refusing to hide it. So am I wrong for exposing my sister's cheating husband in front of the whole family after she spent months mocking me for being cheated on?